Will is able to teleport between dimensions. This theory is a little sad. 13 is out there somewhere. You never see him ride a bike again. Go back and look at the footage. Welcome everyone. My name's Katie. I love Stranger Things, and if you do too, then you should come along with me while we discuss everything that flipped Hawkins, Indiana upside down. About a week ago, I made a massive presentation about everything I loved about Stranger Things and presented it to my fiance. Now, this contained every theory I have, some of my favorite moments. It also had my season 5 predictions in it. And honestly, since I've compiled it all into one place, I can't stop thinking about it. So today, in light of the new Stranger Things 5 date announcement and the 13 new clips that we got from the series, I want to discuss a few of my favorite theories that I believe also tie into this trailer, discuss it with you, hear what you guys think. Do you think it's possible? Do you think it's ridiculous? And of course, there will be spoilers in this if you have not watched through season 4 or if you haven't read some of the prequel material. Caution, as always, if you do not want things spoiled for you, I would stop here. This past weekend at Tudum, which is essentially Netflix's showcase for all of their work in the upcoming year or two, we got the Stranger Things 5 teaser trailer and date announcement, and it will be coming out in 3 parts, which I have mixed feelings on because I'm definitely a binge watcher, but I am excited to be able to theorize between releases. And the Duffer Brothers actually gave us 13 clips and some audio from season 5, which is way more than I thought we were gonna get because the whole Stranger Things section was very reminiscent of past seasons, and I just really didn't think they were gonna give it to us. Ultimately though, getting 13 clips was 1, way more than I expected, and 2, has me further convinced that 13 from the lab is out there somewhere. But that's for another video. Obviously, the trailer is available online, and all of the stills are available on like the Stranger Things Instagram page, but we're really just gonna focus on a few of them today. And I actually am gonna have my presentation for reference on these as well. The first clip that I want to discuss is actually the opening clip of the dialogue between Will and Joyce, which was so exciting to see on the screen. So when it opens, we see Joyce talking to Will, and she says, "I think about that night all the time, the night it came for you. The night all of this started." And Will responds by saying, "Everything changed. We failed, but we need to be ready." I think this is really just reinforcing the fact that the Duffer Brothers are going back to their season 1 roots, which they have discussed a lot. And obviously one of the first scenes in the show is Will getting taken, or Will vanishing. The episode's literally called The Vanishing of Will Byers. And something that I like to think about is the fact that like Stranger Things was not renewed for a second season when that first season came out, but the Duffer Brothers did have the full story arc planned. So there are a lot of really good nuggets within that first season, and especially within that first episode, on like what all of this is about. And I think it's really easy for us to get caught up in like the 11 and Hawkins' lab of it all and kind of forget that this whole show is about Will. And one of the big questions within this show is what happened when 11 escaped? Like what happened the night that 11 escaped and Will got taken? We have never heard anything about that night. The Duffer Brothers did a good job of confusing us a little bit by giving us so much Hawkins lab material in season 4, because if you're not like thinking about it really in depth or really putting together the timeline, it seems like the massacre at Hawkins lab is the night that 11 disappeared, but it's not. It's actually like at least a full year before. So we have no idea what happened when Will was in the Upside Down, and we know that 11 wound up at Benny's somehow, but we don't know how she got there or how she escaped. And something that I think is really important, just like a little nugget, is that 11 recognizes Will before anyone tells her who he is. She like recognizes him, I think, in a photo in Mike's room or in Mike's house before she even knows who he is. Ultimately is like very scared to find him, which in the first season it seems like it's to protect Mike and to protect her new friends, but I also think there may be some other reasons as to why she's scared that maybe she isn't even fully aware of. So kind of tying back to the clip, I know I was giving a lot of backstory there, but like I said, I have dove so deep into this. The night that Will vanishes, he truly vanishes out of thin air. All we see is the light bulb flicker and he's just completely gone. And that is something that we don't really see for the rest of the series. And ultimately, I have a strong inclination that Will is able to like teleport between dimensions when he is under extreme stress, kind of like how in a lot of novels or even in sci-fi, like people discover powers or new aspects of themselves that have always been there just beneath the surface, but they get revealed when they are under extreme stress, such as Will getting stalked by some kind of monster on his way home from his friends. And so I think that Will always had some kind of powers, and I think that that's probably part of why something came after him that first night. It looks like it's the Demogorgon going after him on the first night. However, the behavior of the quote-unquote Demogorgon is, like, in that scene is not typical of what we see a Demogorgon. We typically see Demogorgons portrayed as very bestial, like they just ravage, and they do it with fervor. Like, they fervently ravage things. So it doesn't make sense to me why Will would just see like a flash of it in the street, a flash of it out of his window, and it would like sneak up behind him. So ultimately, I think that maybe it was like Vecna or some kind of like pre-final form Vecna that got through the gate that 11 opened that night and then went after Will to try to get his power. But what he didn't know is that Will is great at hiding, right? I truly think that Will, in his fear and in his desire to hide, uncovered his ability to not only teleport between universes, but to create a sort of tangent universe or build out the echo of Hawkins within the Upside Down. And I think that he did this so that he would know places to hide, because when we see him in the Upside Down later, he's hiding in Castle Byers and he's sticking around his house, so he's sticking to where he knows. Now, I don't think he did this consciously. I'm not even sure if he's completely aware of this, but we know that at some point the Demogorgon destroys Castle Byers and Will ends up in vines in the wall with one of the tendrils down his throat, and it's paralleled to Hopper's child, Sarah, who passed away of childhood cancer when she was intubated in the hospital. So I think something to consider there is the fact that Will survives for basically a full week in the Upside Down. He's hiding for most of that time, but eventually does get caught and put into the vines and intubated, right? But we don't see anyone else ever with a tendril down their throat, like in any season. So why does Will have that? Okay, and obviously he barfs up what becomes Dart, like a little larva that becomes Dart in season 2. But ultimately, like, why did Vecna need to do that, or why did the Mind Flayer need to do that? And I ultimately think it's because he has some unknown abilities, and whether I am correct in that he can create echoes of our world, he has abilities. So they are after something. But I ultimately am not sure that they actually got what they wanted from him. I think maybe in him being so good at hiding, maybe he had kind of a Breaking Dawn, Bella Swan-esque ability to like protect his mind. Maybe his powers weren't able to be, fully extracted, or because he didn't fully pass away. And Vecna, I would assume, was not as strong at that time, because that's 4 years or 3 years prior to season 4, or Will somehow just protected himself. But ultimately, I truly think that he has been permanently altered from this experience. Some of the prequel information that we have actually supports that. We discover in Stranger Things: The First Shadow that Dr. Martin Brenner's father was Captain Brenner on the Philadelphia experiment that went wrong and somehow sent the entire ship and crew to Dimension X. And then only Captain Brenner survives and comes back with a new blood type that essentially gave him like elevated abilities, which just, sparks Martin Brenner's entire fascination into the abilities of the human mind and how it relates to blood type and drugs like acid. And another thing from The First Shadow, you discover when young Henry Creel, like younger than he is in the show, is in Nevada, he goes to a cave where there's one of Dr. Brenner's rogue scientists and accidentally gets transported to Dimension X. The scientist dies, but Henry comes back after 12 hours with a completely altered personality, a whole new look on the world, and he's suddenly feeling this shadowy presence around him, kind of influencing him to do things. As hard as he tries to resist that, he's not always able to, and it causes a lot of issues for him. And so I think that is a really strong parallel to Will having been there for an entire week. Well, to Will having been in the Upside Down, which is possibly Dimension X. I think that it's more likely that the Upside Down of Hawkins is part of Dimension X than him creating an entire new dimension. But I won't rule it out. Actually, now that I think about it, whenever you see in season 4, you see Henry/Vecna get sent to Dimension X, presumptively, by 11. The only things he sees there, I think, are a Demogorgon, possibly a Demodog, and the Mind Flayer. I'll double check that and add it into this video. But you don't see the Demo Bats, in there. And in the first season, we only have one Demogorgon enemy. So part of me is thinking, right? Okay, stick with me. Part of me thinks that 11 opened the gate back to Henry, right? And then that allows him back through and, a Demogorgon, if we're assuming they both go through. So he goes and finds Will, but is unable to take Will back. Will instead creates kind of a branched universe that maybe somehow connects all three of them. And that would explain why in the first couple seasons, there's really not a lot in the Upside Down. In the first season, there's just the one Demogorgon and possibly Vecna. And then in season 2, most of our interactions with it are through Will's now memories where you just see like the Demodogs. So part of me actually thinks that with that aspect of this, as well as considering the fact that Dimension X, I think it tends to have like yellow storms, whereas the Upside Down has a very blue hue to it and sometimes red whenever Vecna is there. I actually think that maybe Will did just create like a branch dimension off of both Hawkins and Dimension X, which could be the Upside Down, and then things could enter the Upside Down from both sides. That's an interesting thought. But I guess the gates have always been red, right? So, I don't know, one or the other. I don't even remember what I was talking about. But ultimately, I think this is just really exciting because it's Will acknowledging that some major change happened that night. Nothing has been the same. And honestly, I think that there's a decent chance that he has been being influenced to do things kind of like off camera or like in the background. And I think that we're gonna see a lot of whatever has been going on with Will, especially in seasons 3 and 4, revealed in season 5 because they really stopped giving him things to do. And whether he's aware of this or not, I kind of don't think he is completely aware of it. I think he knows that he can sense the presence around them. I think if he is doing anything to negatively impact the group, he's completely unaware of it. But he also may be aware and trying to help the group because we do see him actively trying to help Mike a lot in season 4. But anyways, I think there's a really good chance that Will has had this connection to the Upside Down ever since night 1, that he has never been exactly the same. And one other thing that I actually think supports that is my biker party theory, which is the theory that you never see Will ride a bike after the first episode. Okay? You never see him ride a bike again. Go back and look at the footage. I swear I have done this. And no matter how much the marketing wants you to think it is, he has never actually ridden the bike. He has stood next to a bike. He has been dropped off, at different places and by a car, but he has never once been on a bike again. And I think that this is the Duffer Brothers really intentionally trying to tell us that, like, he is no longer the person that was a part of this main party. Now, does that mean he's inherently evil? I don't think so. But does it mean that he has been a completely different person since the show started? Yes. Okay, so that was a really long time on the first shot. So sorry about that. The second one I want to talk about is this one, where we see two figures approaching this giant wall of vines, and we see some kind of like almost translucent body entangled in the vines. I don't know if it's like being preserved. It kind of reminds me of like the Matrix a little bit. This theory is a little sad, but just stick with me. Eddie is the only person we have seen walk into the Upside Down and then pass away. And presumably, his body didn't leave the Upside Down. He's considered missing in Hawkins after the earthquake. And I don't think Dustin would have been able to get him back, especially from the trailer gate, which is up on the ceiling, that he like broke his ankle trying to go through on his own. So I do think that there is actually a possibility that that body there is Eddie's. And we also saw Vecna's body get very erect at the end of season 4. Could it be he's creating a new form for himself? Could it be someone that fell through one of the gates whenever they connected? I don't know, but because it doesn't seem like the vines are truly there to kill people, I think that this body is being preserved for something. And I would think it's for Eddie. I think there's a reason that they showed Eddie turning around to fight the bats off in the teaser trailer. I think that they were truly hitting like the big moments and all of the important things in the show that are going to be pertinent in season 5. So I do think that he's going to come back. I don't know if he'll really be himself. I think that there is a possibility that we will see him in some form back in the season, and I think it will honestly be very sad because the likelihood of it being his consciousness is low to me, considering this is sci-fi and not fantasy, where, it's just like out in the universe. Like, no, he passed away. He wasn't connected to Vecna or the Upside Down in any other way. So ultimately, I don't think that we're gonna see him, but I think we will see his form. And I have a feeling that could either be it or that could be the same way that his form is created or preserved. And lastly, of course, Will's blood-curdling screams. What I will say is the only other times that we see these like super high angle shots of people in the show is when they're being Vecna. Think about Billy. Think about all of Vecna's victims in season 4 and how they hit their necks get turned up to the wall. Something that's interesting is like with those other people, when they're doing that, they can't really like talk, or they can barely move. And you know, maybe he's not getting Vecna, but he is looking up at something massive. And I believe that he is maybe rediscovering his powers, or he has already rediscovered his powers, and he is fighting off something big, trying to protect the people around him. And that ultimately he's going to be kind of like the Harry Potter connection, where he's kind of holding that missing piece and knows how to fend off Vecna and can essentially like protect himself from being consumed. I'm very excited to see what happens with Will, what kind of powers he'll manifest. I think that we are going to need everyone to defeat our big bad, which ultimately I do not think is Vecna, but we can talk about that later. This will shatter me. I think it will completely shatter me. I think we're gonna lose a lot of the like 80s nostalgia in this, but I'm okay with that because if they have the guts to kill off everyone that needs to be killed off, this will be such an epic season. So wow. Okay, if you've made it to the end, thank you so much. And if you liked this video, please hit that like button, leave any comments about your theories below or what you thought about mine, and subscribe if you want to see more from me, because I would love to keep making these videos, and I probably will anyways. So until next time, please, for me, keep the door open 3 inches.